As of today, December 3rd, 2024, several gaming news outlets are reporting information about a new build of Wilds that doesn't face the same issues as the beta test and showing off gameplay elements like customizing your Sacred and the Forge screen. Rapid Morph confirmed, by the way. And that got me thinking, this new build of the game has more than likely already fixed what was wrong in the former. Some may have been hostile to those who voiced their concerns, but it seems that Capcom was already aware of several issues and are making sure we know they know. Monster Hunter is a long-running franchise that faces the same inevitable truth that challenges all things with age, and that's change. Each iteration showcases new systems, mechanics, monsters, and weapon features that expand on the past titles to keep things fresh and interesting. However, not all changes are for the better. The Wilds beta released earlier this month, and players were finally able to try out their favorite weapons. Some were happy, and others, myself included, were quite disappointed, particularly with the Sword and Shield, Lance, Switch Axe, and Insect Glaive. The evolution of weapons in Monster Hunter not only shapes the gameplay experience, but also has a significant impact on player enjoyment and engagement. But what constitutes a weapon's evolution, and what makes for a good or bad change? Evolving a weapon means introducing new attacks, mechanics, and skills that improves upon the previous design without warping the identity or core of the weapon. The Greatsword and Gunlance are the perfect example of this. From the Greatsword's debut in Monster Hunter 1, all the way to current day, it is treated as a slow weapon that requires exploiting a monster's opening through proper positioning and timing to output its massive damage. Each title improved upon this formula by adding new attacks and mechanics that complements the playstyle it originates from. Where it once started as a weapon that had combo restrictions and heavy emphasis on needing to guard, has changed into a weapon that rewards patience and knowledge of the game with high damage charge attacks and the ability to follow up on powerful attacks by chaining another move or evade canceling. Gunlance, on the other hand, has struggled to fulfill the fantasy of a fortress made of tanks until Wilds. Its debut in 2 held a similar design to Lance with the exception of a rising slash and a cannon, sharing similar moves such as lateral and rising thrusts. It's continued solidifying its unique nature with each release where overhead slam, wide sweep, full burst, and more were added. Of course, it got a little crazy in Generations and Rise, providing more mobility and over-the-top attacks, but it seems to have cooled down and cemented its identity in Wilds. Gunlance has now departed from just being a lance with some explosions. Its new tools of guard reloading, more ways to expend shellings, 2 Wyvern's fire shots, and an upgrade to the worm stake all act in unison to provide an intoxicating experience. The dopamine rush that players experience when playing these weapons comes from strategy and execution of the playstyles offered. From the Greatsword's methodical movements and massive strikes to the Gunlance's heightened staunch defense and explosive barrage, players are thoroughly pleased with what changes have been made.
チャタカブラがまた遭遇してきたから対応してフルバースト投げ払いここからねもう全部当てる流行フルバーストからの連想流行フルバーストそしてシメロンしゃがみ流撃砲
A weapon that evolves poorly is one that suffers from a deviation of its past versions in the worst ways, either removing aspects that made it likable, not providing worthwhile changes, or granting other weapons abilities that are consistent with the exception of that particular weapon. Rise and Sunbreak, despite all their glorious additions, had their fair share of weapon controversies. The main victims were Insect Glaive and Hunting Horn. Insect Glaive was the first pre-release controversy, as its showcase left a lot to be desired with the Silkbind attacks. Silkbind Glide and Recall Kinsect were already features present on the weapon without needing to spend a title-exclusive resource to use. Especially when looking back at Generations, which inspired many of the Silkbind skills in the game, this felt like a slap in the face. The main issue comes from seeing other weapons get flashy, powerful-looking attacks like Hammer's Impact Crater. Sure, when the game was fully released, players were given access to Diving Wyvern, but that doesn't soothe the pain of knowing 2 slots were lost on ridiculous design choices. Hunting Horn has quite the tumultuous history when it comes to design changes. The weapon has gone through many mechanical overhauls in regards to playing notes, but the attacks and playstyles have remained the same. For years, it acted as a bulky yet faster hammer with a unique minigame-like mechanic, making every choice to attack or recite a deliberate one. constantly having to use certain attacks in a sequence planned out ahead of time in order to get the buffs that you want before shifting to whatever attack fits the situation, and repeat. In Rise, it sparked major controversy as players felt that the new horn lost its deliberate aspect in favor of faster attacks and a simplified note system. The reality of the situation is that with how fast-paced Rise was planned to be, Hunting Horn was inevitably going to run into issues primarily based around its speed and ability to output damage and songs safely. This change was necessary, but that doesn't mean longtime players were happy with it. With how consistent the attacks have been, their redesign felt like it was taking away what made the weapon special to its small yet devoted fanbase. A weapon's enjoyment is found in its playstyle and how it stimulates the player, which requires its evolution to not only expand upon the prior versions, but also retain the concepts that made it fun to engage with in the first place. Insect Glaive receiving redundant techniques, and Hunting Horn making a drastic shift are polar opposites on the scale of the issue, but denotes the same conclusion nonetheless. To wrap this up, proper additions to a weapon over the course of its lifespan can drastically increase the engagement of the players regardless of skill level and experience in the series. Shifting from what makes a weapon as iconic as it is can have the opposite effect, especially when paired with the unique differences of the title at hand and waiting on the expansion to hopefully fix things. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time.